So, good morning to all. Once again, it is a great pleasure to welcome you all to the Knowledge 4.0 webinar series. So, Knowledge 4.0 webinar series, which is one of the unique and distinct initiative of the Greenilai Technology. So, under Knowledge 4.0 webinar series, we have been conducting webinars in different scenarios such as technical webinar series, research and career guidance webinar series, innovative talk webinar series, and alumni webinar series. So, along with this webinar series, we are also conducting national and international conferences, national and national seminars, faculty development programs, and lecture series. So, this Knowledge 4.0 webinar series is being successful under the motivation of our management of CIT, especially from our chairman, Honorable Mr. Ram, which enable us to conduct the programs in different scenarios. And Chennai Technology was established in the year 2010 by our Honorable Chairman, Sri P. Sriram, and now our institute is being within top 10 among all of the private engineering colleges in Tamil Nadu. So today we have Mr. Ramakrishnan sir, who is one of the well-experienced IT professional turned into agriculture, and who is going to give an excellent talk in this particular forum. So it is our great pleasure to welcome on behalf of all the participants at Chennai Technology to Mr. Ramakrishnan sir. Okay, we welcome you, sir.
Oh, thank you, sir. It's my honor and pleasure.
And Chennai Technology has been taking this tremendous effort in order to enhance the knowledge of faculty members, researchers, and students community as a social responsibility. So far we have conducted more than 200 webinars, and 350 experts have come and shared their expertise in this wonderful forum. So, as a social responsibility during this lockdown period, Chennai Technology has been taking tremendous effort of this Knowledge 4.0 webinar series. So now it is my great pleasure to welcome Swapna, and I request her to introduce our today's expert.
Good morning, everyone. Myself, Swapna, pursuing second year at Chennai Institute of Technology. Today is our expert, Mr. Ramakrishnan sir. Ramakrishnan L is a management professional with more than 30 years of experience in high-tech industries. He founded Greenilai Technologies 3 years ago, along with partners, with a desire to apply technology to next-generation agriculture, particularly focused on urban farming systems for both indoor and outdoor use. Ramakrishnan and team have developed grow lights, indoor plant growing systems, and irrigation and fertigation automation products that have been deployed in more than 70 customer sites. Ramakrishnan holds a Master in Project Management from Kellogg Graduate School, USA, Masters in Electronics and Communication from Indian Institute of Science, and BE from PSG College of Technology. Ramakrishnan is a father of 2 children, passionate about building things, solving problems, and proud to be a coach and mentor for many from younger generations. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Sir, thank you so much for accepting our request. Please, you can go over to the session, sir.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. So, very good morning, participants. Very glad to meet you online. It's a great thing. One of the positives outcome of this coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic is that lots of these webinars are happening, and it's given us opportunity to meet virtually and share a lot of ideas and knowledge. So really appreciate Chairman of CIT, Sriram, as well as others who have ventured out to actually do this webinar series. I think it's Knowledge 4.0. Really appreciate that. So providers platform, let's use that. My topic today is on urban farming. The objective of the session today is really share the knowledge in terms of what is urban farming to begin with. So I'll spend a little bit of time on that, and there's a corresponding topic called Agritecture, which is also being introduced. So let's get on with these topics. Why are these needed? What are the benefits? How it all got started, and so on. So I want to give a brief overview of that. If you really see, the cities are growing today enormously. They have become concrete jungles. Okay, they're full of building, roads, all kinds of infrastructure to support people and living as well as offices and so on. So this is a well-known issue that is happening. However, none of us are able to stop this or control this because cities are the economic centers. They are the job creators primarily. Okay, so really we cannot say cities cannot happen or they should not become so big and so on and so forth. So what do we do then? Really the question comes down to how are we going to actually work with this problem? Okay. So let's go to the look at the data today, particularly for India. If you really see, close to 40% of the population is going to live in big cities. The metros already are supporting very large amount of population. We all know that. Many of us live in such metros. So as another, few years, about 40% of India's population is going to be living in major urban centers. If this trend continues, then we have a problem. What is the problem really? Is the cities themselves are not a problem. However, we as humans, we want to really surround ourselves by nature. We love green things. We love plants. We love other animals and so on and so forth. So this is called biophilia, which is a very important term to remember. In fact, that's kind of a root word that we will use a few times in today's lecture. Is basically the reason why we are going into urban farming as well as agriculture. Okay, if you think about it, you may not have heard of this term before, but then we all know that when we are surrounded by greenery, we feel happier. Okay, greenery is also a lot of other benefits. It reduces CO2 in the air and increases oxygen that we breathe, making us healthier and so on. So I don't have to go through that entire list here. But on the other hand, the space is limited in cities, right? We need space for building, we need space for so much of infrastructure, but we also need space for greenery. How are we going to find this balance? That is the question really in front of us, isn't it? So if you really look at that, then how do we get this balance right? Now, when we start building future cities, I'm sure the architects and urban planners and so on are going to really take care of this particular need of how do we increase the greenery, so on. But also we have cities already in place that are completely out of balance. So how do we then handle this? So really, there are two sets to this problem: existing cities as well as the upcoming cities. And the answer to both these type of cities to achieve the right balance seem to be provided by urban farming. Okay. So I hope you're with me on this so far. So now the term, let's introduce this formally. Urban farming is a broad term that means growing greenery for consumption in urban setting. Okay. So I want to spend a little time on this wording here, but I want to get it right. Okay. So we always had gardens around us in cities. Even now there are gardens. You will find some kind of greenery here and there. But a garden becomes a farm when we start actually consuming the produce coming out of that. Okay. Gardens are aesthetic, sometimes just produce a few things, but we want to start depending on these things as consumables, as part of our edible food chain. Okay. So that's the kind of broad definition of a word called urban farming. Now, is that the only reason that we want just greenery around us in cities? Is that the only reason for urban farming? No, definitely not. There's a whole bunch of other reasons. So let's see a few of them. Before that, let's introduce the term agritecture as well. Agritecture is actually a sub or a smaller topic as part of urban farming itself. The two terms are closely related. Okay, so if you really see, when we start growing greenery for consumption, it becomes urban farming, and some part of that is also related to aesthetic and providing green cover, landscaping, and so on and so forth. The other aspects of this are actually energy saving. Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit more later. But essentially, buildings have to be energy efficient as well. There's a lot of discussion going on today about this carbon footprint of buildings and infrastructure. And clearly, greening them, adding greenery to the environment there, is actually going to create a good amount of carbon footprint reduction. So very much desired. Buildings want to be green labeled and so on and so forth. So agritecture is also becoming part of this initiative called urban plan. Going forward, I will focus on urban farming when I also mean agritecture. Okay, so assume that. Now, there are other reasons. Probably I'll just hit on this one very big item, which is really driving the force behind urban farming. Okay, is the quality of food that we consume. We all know that, especially the green vegetables and so on, that we consume today are laden with pesticides, fertilizer residue, chemicals of all kinds, and so on and so forth. Now, this is inevitable because we're running out of land to cultivate these things cleanly. We're running out of water to cultivate them cleanly. And on top of that, they have to travel long distances from where they are produced and where they're consumed. Okay. So this is an inevitable problem. So ultimately, we end up consuming not so fresh food, unhealthy food all the time. So this also makes a very strong case for looking at urban farming. Okay. Now, there are so many other benefits. We don't have enough time to cover all of them. Just threw out a whole bunch of terms here so that we can just briefly touch upon some top ones. Let's take water consumption. It's a huge issue today. Regular farming consumes large amount of water, and they are scarce resource. Water is a scarce resource today. So we need to find better ways of doing farming, consuming less water. Decrease food miles, exactly as I was talking about the previous slide. The produce has to travel long distances before it reaches the consumer. And so we kind of call that in a nice way called food miles, okay? The amount of distance your food is actually traveling before it's reaching you. So decreasing food miles is a very important element to urban farming. Decrease carbon emissions, increase oxygen around us, energy savings, improve health through fresh eating, and pride. We want to have pride of ownership that I have my own garden and producing my own food is a phenomenal amount of pride that goes along with that. We want to recycle. Increase knowledge of food automatically increases our, ownership and our pride. On top of that, they also reduce waste. The moment you produce some food, you are less likely to actually waste that, and so on and so forth. So the whole idea of urban farming started with these two big points, which is one is greenery in cities, number two is healthier eating, and then added to that with all these other benefits of that, make a compelling case for urban farming. I hope you agree with me on that. We'll talk about more. Okay, there are a whole bunch of other enablers. When we say enablers, what we mean by there are a lot of factors that are converging today. Why urban farming has become useful, important, and more than just a fad. It's not a fashionable thing to talk about now. It's an essential thing to talk about now. Okay, so number one that is driving this whole movement is because of next generation farming. There's a lot of technology that's gotten into farming, including myself. My technology has got into this area because a lot of technology can be applied to great benefit in farming. Okay, so that we call it next generation farming. Then we have a lot of traditional farm that exists today face enormous pressure, inefficiency, water scarcity, labor dependency. Every single factor is really making farming very difficult the traditional way. So we need to find some alternative ways of doing it. It's not either or. Traditional way of farming will continue to exist. However, we will also deploy new methods of farming as an addition or an add-on to the existing farms. Okay, and so urban farming is actually one such initiative that really helps in this process. The other enablers for the next generation farming are listed here. Kind of like drip irrigation. It's a very interesting development that happened not right now. It started 30, 40 years ago. Many countries have adopted it very successfully, essentially to conserve water. So when you do drip irrigation, I'm sure many of you are already familiar with this. You just use small plastic tubes that actually drip water one drop at a time at the required spots within the farm. Okay, so that you don't actually end up watering on a large scale, just throwing water everywhere and then wasting large amounts of that. When you're short of water, then drip irrigation is the way to go. Okay. Along with drip irrigation, automation comes into play because once you have drip tubes installed, drip emitters installed, and so on, automation of that becomes the next step. So I know exactly when to turn it on, when to turn it off. I also measure the soil conditions before I decide how much watering is needed, and so on and so forth. On a day like today, where there's a lot of rain everywhere, probably you don't need to water your farm. So that's the kind of thing that goes along with that. So technology is ubiquitous, everywhere it's available. So very easy for us to add on these kind of things to farming. Then we have growing lights that are important. We'll talk about it a little more, show you some examples of this. In addition to sunlight, we are able to now utilize low cost, very high efficiency LED lights that have entered the picture. They are very useful for agriculture, especially for indoor purposes. Okay. Then there is a movement towards organic growing and sustainable methods because people are finding that the topsoil has been eroded, completely polluted with fertilizers and all kinds of chemicals, and insects in the soil. All are creating whole kind of set of issues. So organic way of growing, finding sustainable methods of growing have taken big importance in people's mind today. If you talk to a common man, they do know what organic farm means, and they're all kind of going towards that direction. Controlled environment, the other thing, which is very important to know. Basically, you have greenhouses kind of structures. So instead of growing your produce in an open air format, you actually put some kind of structure around it, particularly with plastic sheets, just covering the thing. And the benefit of that is that it actually provides you ability to control the impact of weather. For example, unseasonal rain and torrential rains kind of thing can be stopped from affecting your plant. Enormous amount of pests are in the circulation today. How do you control them? Through pesticides is one approach which we have used all the time. But the moment you put a greenhouse and cover your plants, automatically they become pesticide free. It's easier to control them in that kind of environment. So all these are enablers kind of driving us towards, next generation farming. So that is I hope you can understand that these are all beneficial. Definitely add on to existing agricultural methods. Okay. So now, are we talking about some kind of a fad that people are something fashionable to talk about, or is it something that is here to stay? So urban farming has really crossed over from just being a curiosity to a real trend, a real sustainable set of activities. Okay. So the reasons are listed here. I don't want to read every bit of that, but essentially people are the primary drivers. A lot of urban living people have realized that, hey, I have social responsibility to eat healthier, to grow my own food, and to the extent possible, make my environment green. These are all things that a lot of people have got on in their mind. And one of the things is also generational, that younger generation, millennials, were born, around 2000 onwards. They all appreciate the need for doing this essential change because they find that environment they're living in is becoming unsustainable. So clearly, all these factors are driving us towards, urban farming as probably a good solution for many, many different ailments. So with that, I'll just switch on the topic a little bit on agritecture, just to give you some examples in pictures. We talked about how do we build greenery into buildings and infrastructure. And it so happens that airports around the world are actually leading the way in this. There are a lot of other office spaces also doing this, but airports are very visible examples because they also invite a lot of people, a lot of footfall happens, a lot of people travel through airports. So they have become very visible, tangible places for demonstrating this. So you find that phenomenal thought have gone into these airport designs. And why I'm showing some of these here is because Chicago O'Hare Airport as well as Kochi International Airport, both are actually older airports. They've actually adopted to the modern ways of bringing in greenery and agriculture into existing infrastructure. Okay, so you can see there tremendous benefits coming out of these initiatives. Couple of more examples here. Frankfurt International Airport is another example where rooftops have been consumed completely by greenery. Singapore Airlines taken a different stand. They want to actually grow consumable items right by their airports, and they are very proud to say that the food that you're eating inside a plane when you're flying is actually the freshest produce. Okay, they claim that it is fresher than your supermarket. So just imagine the logistics involved, how they made it happen, but it is a reality today. Okay. So closer home, this is a picture of Bangalore International Airport, Terminal 2, is coming up. So enormous effort is going on right now. It's not yet commissioned fully, but it's going to be a very green airport, probably setting and completely new global standards. Okay, so you will find that enormous amount of greenery both inside the airport terminal, everywhere, outside in the building, and every kind of space has been completely planned out in terms of how we can utilize water, how we can utilize greenery, how we can all make this coexist. So these are all excellent examples of agritecture at play. You basically have taken that into consideration in planning time itself. So it's going to be a great experience going forward. Couple of more pictures as examples for you. The one that you see on the right hand side is typically known as a green wall, or sometimes we call them as vertical gardens. Okay, so the benefit of green walls and vertical gardens is that they take up very little space on the ground level, so they are actually quite useful in many instances. So that's the introduction to agritecture. Couple of more examples of this from not necessarily an architecture and agritecture perspective, but you will be surprised to find that plant growing and farming at a larger scale have entered some really weird places. For example, the building that you see on the right top left here is actually an old warehouse building somewhere in Japan. You'll be surprised when you see outside, it is a very regular warehouse kind of setting, but inside, the picture on the right is what you would see. Okay, it's completely LED lights, grow lights are being used to grow fresh green produce. The one that you see on the bottom left here is really the hilly region, very high altitude kind of a location. And you see those structures over there, they are actually containers. The blue color boxes are more like cargo containers that have been converted to plant growing spaces. Okay, the picture that you see on the right is the interior of a container. Okay, hard to believe, but these are all have been done, have been proven. They've crossed over from just being a experiment. They're all being productively used. So in a high altitude environment, difficult to reach terrain, it is possible for us to grow these kind of things. And why is this possible suddenly? Simply because technology enables it. We have these grow lights that are available, and then we can go ahead and build them. So we'll talk about more. There are tremendously large number of pictures. In fact, this is a farm somewhere in India. Technology has reached every nook and corner of the world today to make enormously successful farms of this kind. So I'll move on to the kind of next level of discussion here. What are these growing methods? We talked about urban farming as necessary because of greening of the cities have become necessary. Then we talked about a lot of enablers, you said technology and so on. And this is one such topic, which is basically we have found newer ways of growing things. So as we go along, you will see some of these terms. Just wanted to introduce them to you. So we have soil-based organic growing, which is now the norm. People don't want to use too much of fertilizers. Try to find a good way of growing sustainable, vegetation, farming, and so on. So topsoil is mixed with coco peat, which is coming out of the coconut tree husks and so on. They are available in powdery form, easy to transport, easy to mix with soil. We also have vermicompost, etc. Whole bunch of science behind that to make the soil richer, faster, and healthier. Okay, all these are going on today. So if you are used to traditional farming, you want to continue that. Certainly, there are newer methods of doing that. Then there is hydroponics. For some of you, it may be the term that you are hearing for the first time. We will spend a little time explaining what that is, because that's one of our expertise. Myself, I've been involved in hydroponics for some time now. It's basically a way of growing plants and vegetables and so on in a soil-less fashion. Basically, we don't use soil for that. The roots are fed nutrients and water directly in a liquid form. So it's a very interesting approach. Again, this is not a new thing. It's been around for more than 50, 60 years. Mostly in research form, people have tried it in small scale, so on and so forth. But as the pictures in the previous slide showed you, it is no longer in the research area. They are actually actively being used. Almost every one of them, indoor growing systems with grow lights and all that, deploy hydroponics as a method of growing. Then there is also a method called aeroponics, which is a form of hydroponics, but just that instead of actually feeding water and nutrients, they are fed in a mist form, kind of a spray. So we use a sprayer kind of a technique to spray water and nutrient onto roots, and plants grow very well. Then we have the concept of aquaponics. We will talk about that later as well. Aquaponics is a way to utilize fisheries, fish growing ponds, to also feed our plants. It's a very natural, sustainable way of growing things. So all these are different approaches to growing vegetables and plants in very healthy ways. Okay. So let's see some pictures to understand what we are talking about. This is a picture from India, one of the farms. They're using drip irrigation. They basically soil is then enhanced with vermicompost and other compost material. So it's a traditional looking farm, but then they have adopted next generation techniques to do a better efficient growing. Here is an example of a hydroponic system. Just wanted to explain to you some of the elements of that. The picture shows a bunch of plastic tubes or square tubes that you see on the picture. They are called channels, and channels can be any long. We can have them from 1 meter all the way to 10 meters. And then they are actually having these small holes that are drilled into one side of that. Okay. And inside those holes, we put what are called net pots, and they are the holder of plants. So you can actually grow plants this way. And the channels are actually circulated with nutrient water. We circulate them in a very thin layer. I mean, we don't really use that the full capacity of the channel. We just use maybe a very thin film of water. And there are, on the right hand side, you see Dutch buckets. The picture is not very visible probably, but you have these buckets that are like pots on which we are growing the things with the cocoa peat as a growing medium. Then we have feeding tanks. We have controller to control all these things. So this is a typical structure that you will see of a hydroponic way of growing. And you may ask the question, hey, what's the benefit of doing this? Hydroponics happen to be the most efficient way of growing plants. It does not use soil. It uses a thin film of water. Now, the benefit of not using soil is that you can actually locate this hydroponic farm of any scale anywhere in the world. You're not depending on the soil. So even infertile land can be converted to a farm relatively easily. Think about the impact of what I'm saying. It's a phenomenal thing, because if soils are not usable for agriculture today, and we are running out of space, we are running out of topsoil, then certainly hydroponics is the way to go, because it can give you ability to convert those things to very usable forms. So a lot of pictures here of explaining some of the other NFT or way of growing hydroponics. The one picture that you see on the bottom left is actually a very simple desktop size growing system. Light is actually added to the top, which is an LED light, and you can keep this small growing system anywhere you want, and they will produce enormously usable, consumable items. Okay, the one on the top left you see is a small hydroponic channels that are being deployed. The one in the middle is actually in one of the corporate offices that we have actually installed. Again, channels are used for growing plants, and the device that you see on the right hand side is actually an indoor growing system with LED lights. So it's got a couple of trays that are shown here, growing plants. So you can actually grow almost anything anywhere. As we will see, go along, some more pictures will come. Now switching the topic to aeroponics, just want to give a quick illustration. We touched upon it. Aeroponics is a way of growing plants using a mist sprayed onto the roots, and grows very well. They are very fast growing plants, can be produced this way. It also does not use soil, so some people consider this a form of hydroponics. Then the third way of growing is called aquaponics. So any water body that contains fish culture, fish growing in there, can be a source for feeding to plants. So it's kind of like a symbiosis that get created between fish that is also producing nutrients for the plant, and the plants actually end up oxygenating the water, evaporating them, and so on. So very little external support is required. So people consider this as a very pure form of agriculture. Okay, you may think that this is something new. No, it's not. It turns out that very long ago, maybe 5,000 years ago, humans have actually used these ways of growing plants, okay, in ponds and lakes and so on. So it's a very interesting way of growing things. Again, part of the Agritecture, any water body can be converted to a piece of growing form. Let's switch quickly to structures and locations. Plants can be grown anywhere, as we have seen some examples already. Can be indoor, outdoor, inside greenhouses, anywhere, because we have enough flexibility now to add on lights to anything. Outdoor locations, increasingly you're going to find in urban setting, any public space available can be consumed by it. In fact, you find most of the railway stations, metros, buildings, schools, malls, offices, every single one of them can host and should host some kind of a green form. Okay, it's possible to do that. Rooftops, natural choice. In fact, most of our work has been involved with converting rooftops to green spaces. Apartments, homes, offices, anything is game. As we saw earlier, airports, excellent examples of that. Balconies, walkways, receptions, any area can be converted to green forms. Okay. Just more examples of that, so I don't want to belabor the point anymore. But generally, you find that almost anything is possible these days. Okay. In terms of structures that we want to use for these systems, you have traditional open air forms, you have greenhouse forms, shade net. You might have seen those green kind of breathing nylon nets that are used as side covers for many forms. That is also possible. Wall mount is possible. Many times they are known as vertical gardens. You will find several examples in the few pictures I'm going to show you now. A-frames are possible, channels, pots, buckets, grow bags, grow beds, hanging pots, you name it. There are so many different options today for growing anything anywhere. Okay. Not going to talk about these slides, just you can see the pictures. You have those vertical walls full of beautiful plants and flowers. A-frame structure right here. You have this poly house and greenhouse. All are listed somewhere here. So this is an example of a very large farm somewhere abroad, but places like Israel, Australia, Japan, they have deployed these next generation farms in controlled environments, very large sizes. Okay. Quickly, let's turn our attention to what can be grown. I'm speaking about this from particularly personal level as well as for commercial production. Leafy vegetables of all kinds can be grown. Leafy vegetables are the best because they are very quick in turnaround. Anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks, you will see results. So you can actually consume the produce fairly quickly. And leafy vegetables are the ones most impacted in the marketplace today with pesticides and residues. So they are a very good target. You can grow larger plants, tomatoes, capsicums, any creeper like cucumber, root vegetables. All are game. Pretty much they're all doable. And all of them, if you see, they're commercially viable too. It's not just as a hobby. If you are interested, you can actually set up a farm and make a commercially productive, profitable venture out of this. It's quite possible today. Herbs and spices, definitely yes, because they are very difficult to get. Some of them are exotic, rare, they're imported many times. Absolutely, they came for growing in many of these methods. Ornamentals are very much part of the agritecture initiatives. They give you pleasure, they give you a nice look and feel. And on top of that, we have energy savings. So clearly the whole spectrum of plants are open for us. And a lot of research goes on all around India and the world. How do we actually grow better things suitable for any environment? Okay. So now I'm switching on to the final part of the presentation, doing your part. So you may be wondering, what do we want to do? Here is an example. A chairman in CIT have kind enough to provide a space. So here we have an example of that. We have created a center for hydroponics in CIT campus. And it's just being commissioned and getting ready. So if you see here, it's going to be a springboard for actually doing a lot of research in next generation agricultural technology, and it will involve multiple disciplines. So we just got started. It's in the works right now. We also have, every person, any household, no matter where they live, what they do, you can be a urban farmer. Okay. So I just given some pointers here. Start small, go with something extremely simple. Get interested, see the outcomes, then you keep proceeding. You'll find that you'll automatically become an urban farmer. Okay, you get hooked to it for life. No question about that. So use the produce to derive benefits, because if you're not consuming yourself, then you won't be interested. It's just a hobby, just kind of doing it as a pastime. No, take it seriously so that you are consuming the outcomes. And you need not spend money, as I will show you in the following slides. So much of interesting ideas are floating around how to reduce the cost and footprint. Recycle the waste, use natural methods. All kinds of online resources available today for anybody who is interested in pursuing this. So absolutely, good time to start is now. Some examples here very quickly on how creative people are. Plastic bottles seem to be a very important farming tool today. So you can do all kinds of interesting things with them. Okay. So what else can you do in terms of your own farming effort? You make sure that you completely recycle everything, including kitchen waste, wastewater, through composting and other methods. Okay. There are very, very interesting implements, tools, ideas available today. Don't have time to get into each one of these, but certainly make sure you are aware of it. Make sure you practice as much as you can with whatever constraints you may have. I'm sure you have a space constraint, your time constraint, but a lot of solutions are possible. Okay. By doing that, you make yourself completely sustainable. So become an urban farmer today, recycle, use compost, use sunlight. I just want to belabor on this point a little more. We are very fortunate to be living in a tropical country like India. For us, throughout the year, you have sunlight. And sunlight is the mother of all energy giving sources for plants. Plants love the sunlight. They want to grow there. Okay. So we are fortunate to have that year around. And so please utilize that. Okay. So that is my humble request to all of you. And involve children. If you have youngsters at home, they get introduced to farming very early. I'm sure they will be lifetime farmers in some form or the other. Community farming is basically pooling your resources with a bunch of people around you. Consume local produce, encourage local farmers, reduce food miles. All these are just point advices I can give you. So become an urban farmer today. I can't emphasize any more than this. So, but we are here to help. A lot of things are already happening. I hope you will join this great effort. Okay. So thank you very much. I will stop here and hand over to the coordinators. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sure, welcome.
Now let's go to the questioning session, sir. Sir, am I audible
Yeah,
to
very
you?
much, yes. Yeah, we can go for questions, yes. I hope there are some.
Okay, sure. Sure, sir. Question from Bhuvanesh Shankar. Is using biofertilizer good, sir?
Yes, yes, 100%, yes. Thanks for the question, Bhunesh. The biofertilizers are excellent. I just want to issue a word of caution. The market is now full of products like this. They are very expensive, so watch out for it. When you get started, it's fine, but you will find when you start using them large scale, they tend to be very expensive. So find ways of making them yourself. Biofertilizers are nothing but composts, just seasoned properly, processed properly, are excellent biofuels. Okay, biofertilizers. So definitely use the techniques. Don't depend on end up buying them from store shelves, because that's actually beating the purpose. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
The next question by Sirisha. Is there any disadvantages of these types of modern farming? Can you add your comments on it,
Sure.
sir?
Sure. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. No, that's a good question. I don't want to market this as a solution for everything. I hope you understand that. Essentially, there is a huge debate going on in the world about, if you look at hydroponics, we are talking about nutrient being fed through water and not using soil. To some extent, it's beneficial, it's better because it's pesticide free. However, huge debate around this, that whether it's organic. Okay. So it's probably not organic because we are using still nutrients and chemical fertilizers somewhere in the mix here. If you are a Puritan and you say, hey, is this organic? Probably not. So, however, it's better than what you are getting in the market today. So it's a step in the right direction. So along with these modern methods, you have to constantly ask yourself the question: are we using natural methods? Are we using sustainable methods? Is an essential question. If the answer is yes, then I would say wholeheartedly yes, go for it. Do more of that. But if the answer is, we're still depending on chemicals, we're still depending on, a lot of processing and so on and so forth, then we have to step back and ask the question: how do we make it any better? So it's a journey. There's no end point to this. We keep on improving ourselves. So my answer to that would be yes, there are certain negatives to these things, but then the benefits far outweigh the negatives. Certainly, yes. Okay. Similarly, sunlight is always better than anything that we can produce artificially as grow lights, for example. However, there are situations where grow lights are very useful. So we'll continue to use them. Okay. So it's like that. So you want to find the right mix of these technologies and then go forward.
Thank you, sir. The next question by Akshaya. Mushroom can grow in hydroponic method?
Yes. It's a good question. I will elaborate. Yes, mushrooms are grown, continue to be grown in hydroponics and other methods. In fact, there are farms, there are people specializing in mushroom growing in and around Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu. You can Google them and find out. They have excellent source of information on this. Okay, so yes, very much so. And mushroom farming is extremely profitable, by the way. So if you want to enter into as a business venture, mushrooms are excellent, producers.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question by Bhuvanesh Shankar. Could you please explain your view of using hybrid seeds in increased productivity?
I will take this question with a disclaimer. I'm not, an expert in agriculture by any means. There are a lot of very learned people on topics of this nature. So I will actually use their advice more than mine at this point in time. However, I'll just share with you what I know. So hybrid seeds are being produced with specific purposes in mind. For example, to reduce the growing time, to reduce the height of the plants. Sometimes we want dwarf varieties. We want to get some specific qualities of the food that's being produced. For example, papaya hybrid seeds are there which produce some different texture and taste, and so on and so forth. I would say it's fine. They're all good research material. It's, hybrids have been produced out of excellent research and study. So we should probably take advantage of that. So hybrids are kind of going in the direction of genetically modified food, but they're not. They're naturally, hybridized. So in genetically modified food, there's a whole bunch of questions and debate going on. So I would say hybrids are somewhere in the middle of that. So it's certainly welcome to do that, but then please consult any agriculture specialist for specific questions. For hydroponics alone, there are a lot of hybrid seeds produced specifically for hydroponic purposes. So market is getting very specialized.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
The next question by Karthik. Is it possible to make profit by selling large-scale farming commercially?
Oh yes, 100%, 100%. I know that question is coming from because we normally hear a lot of farmers committing suicide under distress and so on and so forth. Undeniable. These are all facts. We see that in the news every day. But I've also heard from experts in this field that farmers who are actually applying the right techniques, becoming more efficient and very productive, are extremely rich. So you can actually become a very rich man. The next billionaire could be a farmer. No doubt about that. Okay. It's a question of applying the right techniques, methods, and learn constantly and improve. Will get you there. Okay. Just to share with you my knowledge and experience very limited in the space. Chhattisgarh in India, farmers have now really caught on this idea of modern farming methods. And if you Google and find, maybe you'll find more information on this. They are doing excellent progress in terms of high productivity, high yielding, highly profitable crops. They have switched over from traditional crops to highly profitable crops, and they are reaping the benefits as a whole state, as a whole region. Okay, so these are all examples of how the agriculture is getting transformed. That from a distressed, loss-making, forever dependent on government funding model to something more profitable, self-sustaining, and extremely enriching. Okay, quite possible. Yes.
Thank you, sir. The next question by Yuvraj. Which remote sensing and GIS techniques are suitable for studying urban agriculture?
Can I understand the question? So basically, aqua agriculture is suitable for remote monitoring. Is that the question?
Which remote sensing and GIS techniques are suitable for studying urban agriculture?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, certainly. I see no problem with that. All these technology enablers are very much happening around the urban farming and so on. So it's yes, 100%. But the technology is applicable to even traditional agriculture. I mean, a lot of soil moisture sensing, remote sensing, and so on. Information of weather being utilized for traditional agriculture is all on increase. So we can do precision watering, precision pesticide spraying, precision sowing. All are possible today with technology. So it's all controlled remotely, happening in a very, very precise fashion. The benefit of doing that is we reduce wastage every step of the way. So the soil is better utilized. We don't over fertilize anything. We don't overwater places where we don't need water, and so on and so forth. Each one of them adds to the efficiency of farming. So absolutely, yes. No question about that.
Thank you so much, sir. One last question by Aloysius Brito. How to
Yeah.
reduce the cost of an organic product because marketing of organic goods struggling in high pricing?
Yeah, I know. So it's a pet peeve of mine as well. The organic movement initially was aimed at reducing the cost and keeping things simple. But as more and more people have got onto this bandwagon of organic produce and eating healthy and so on, the cost has become prohibitive. I mean, just unsustainable. So please don't get on this bandwagon. Organic is nothing but how we used to produce food 50 years ago. That's all. Nothing new. Okay. Organic is not a new thing. It's just that we were producing certain way. We got into usage of fertilizers and pesticides more and more, and slowly we have moved away from natural ways of growing. That's all. So really get back into that. I'm sure the organic produce will be as pricey or as inexpensive as any other method. Okay. But unfortunately, we are in a transition period, so everybody is kind of trying to get to organic produce being produced and sold in the marketplace. Having said that, there is an issue with organic produce, which is as humans like to eat organic produce, the pests and insects also like to use organic produce. So a typical farm that is produced by other methods will be left alone. All the pests actually end up coming to an organic farm. Okay, this is a fact. So when you're doing organic farming, you actually fight the insects even more because they love your produce. So this is one of the reasons why wastage is higher in organic farming, and therefore costs are higher. So there must be ways of actually dealing with this. So it's happening, but then a lot of knowledge is required to be successful in the organic farming space.
Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome.
I thank Mr. Ramakrishnan sir for giving such a wonderful session and sharing his views on agriculture with us. I thank you so much, sir, for sharing your views on it. And I thank all the participants who are attending this session. I think this would be useful for building your career. And I thank our management of CIT, and I thank Mr. P. Sriram for giving such motivation and conducting webinar sessions like this. And I thank Dr. V. Dinagaran for giving me such wonderful opportunity. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think we'll meet in the next session. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you.